Good morning. Today I want to give you some tips on 16/8 fasting for those of you that have joined me on this journey. I have 4 tips and I'm going to share with you, and I have some notes down here because you know I need my notes. So just to remind me of what I want to tell you. The first tip I have for you is knowing when to fast. So there are 3 common time windows that people fast, and you should choose one of those 3 to get started. And the first time window is 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is when you eat. And from 6 p.m. to the next morning at 10 a.m., you're fasting, meaning you're not eating at all. The second window is the one that I do, which is 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. is when I eat, and from 7 p.m. until the next morning at 11 a.m. is when I fast. And the last window is from noon to 8 p.m. is when you eat, and then from 8 p.m. until the next day at noon is when you fast. So you can choose any one of those 3, whatever fits your lifestyle. It works for me to do 11 to 7 because then I can incorporate a little bit of breakfast items in and include my lunch. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I actually eat in just a second. Okay, the second tip is how to eat. So usually what I do is from 7 p.m. at night until 11 a.m. the next day, I drink water, and you can also have other beverages, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I usually just drink water while I'm fasting, and then during the eating period, which is what I really want to focus on, is I continue to eat my whole foods, plant-based, no oil foods, which are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, and very occasionally avocado. Now let's go back to the grains, because before I was eating grains that included flour. So they were whole grains like whole wheat flour, oat flour. So I would have maybe like a muffin here and there, or we would make some kind of healthy cookie or whatever. But right now, while I'm in this phase of losing the rest of my weight, I am actually not eating any ground down flours. So I'm sticking to things like potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, barley, those types of intact grains, meaning they haven't been ground down into a flour yet. So when you hear intact grain, that's what they're talking about. And the reason for that is that flours are high calorie dense. When you take, let's say, this much of wheat berries and you grind them down into a flour, they're going to get a little smaller, but the calories are going to stay the same. So it takes more of that flour to make you full. Also, for a type 2 diabetic, when you're eating flours, a lot of times your blood sugar will spike, and if it spikes and you have trouble bringing that back down, you have a lot of glucose that's just kind of floating sugar that's just floating around in the bloodstream, and it's having to produce more insulin to try and move that glucose into the muscle cells. And the problem with that is, it's a known fact that when you have too much insulin being produced, it causes weight gain, it causes all kinds of havoc. So I definitely don't want my pancreas to be producing too much insulin. I want it to be producing only what it needs to break down or to bring those sugars into my muscle cells. So one change we've made is we just are staying away from flours if possible. Now, I will tell you that once last week and once this week, I had one meal with 1 corn tortilla. It didn't seem to affect my blood sugar at all. It's not affecting my weight loss, and so I'm probably going to incorporate a meal with a corn tortilla maybe once in a while for a while here. And also, not to say that I'm never going to have any flours, but right now I'm doing the best I can to stay away from them because it's helping me. The second thing that I'm doing is I'm not using any sugar or sweeteners in any of the food that I'm making. So before, I would put a little bit of agave or a little bit of maple syrup in something, or maybe even more than a little bit of maple syrup in a dressing or something like that. But I'm making choices that don't require those kind of sweeteners right now, because I do think those sweeteners were raising my triglycerides, which, by the way, when I got my blood work back yesterday after having it done 3 weeks ago, and then yesterday, my triglycerides dropped 34 points. So that is huge for me because I don't want my triglycerides to be high. And that affects heart and everything else. So definitely don't want that to happen. Okay, so eating healthy, the main thing is I'm eating as many whole foods as possible. I'm refraining from eating simple carbohydrates that are broken down, processed, and just trying to keep those out of my diet right now. Number 3, what should you eat? What should you drink when you're fasting? Because when you're fasting, you have to hydrate your body. You can't just fast from all food and drink. So I always have this all the time. I'm constantly drinking water. By the way, this is not a pitch for them, but I love this bottle. I got this from Plant Pure Nation. I use it all day long, every single day. It's a glass bottle, and I've never had a glass bottle before, but I love this thing, and it stays really cold. And anyway, I just love it, and I like the color. It's a cool color. So I drink lots of water. Also, you can drink green tea without any sweeteners. So if you like green tea, you can drink that. You can also drink black coffee, which I don't like black coffee, so I probably would never drink black coffee, but you can. Just be careful not to drink things like Ticino, because I love Ticino, and sometimes I do have that during my eating period, but Ticino has dates in it, and so it's just a light little bit of sweetener, but the problem with that is it does kind of mess with your brain, and your brain says, oh, here's some carbohydrates, let's start burning them again, and that's not what we want it to happen. We want to burn fat. Okay, so we got 1, when to fast, 2, what to eat during your eating period, 3, what to drink when you're fasting, and let's go to the last one, which is really important, is when should you exercise? Because obviously exercise or moving is an extremely important part of life, not just during your weight loss period, but always. We've got to be moving. It's important for your muscles. It's important for just to extend your life. It's important to move. You don't want to be sedentary. So when to exercise? Well, right now, you guys know that I had an injury a couple of days ago where I pulled our KitchenAid mixer off the bottom shelf of our bookshelf in our kitchen, and it fell on my toe. So I have a completely bruised foot right now, and it's swollen, still a little bit swollen, and I can't get a shoe on it, and so I haven't been able to run, which is really annoying me. But on top of it, here in Texas, in Dallas where I live, it is going to be raining this whole week, so Anyway, but that's not an excuse to not exercise. So during your fasting period, it's actually a really good time to exercise. That seems weird because you probably think, oh, I need to have food in my body when I exercise. No, I always run and exercise, and always have, on an empty stomach. It's actually the best time to exercise, and you reap the most benefits during a fasting period. So in the morning when I get up, I get myself going and I go out for a run or a walk, and I don't eat before I do that. And it's funny how once you get out there, you really don't feel hungry. You just kind of go. I mean, a great example is the other day when I was 16/8 fasting, I actually ran 3 miles on an empty stomach, and I was perfectly fine when I came home. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. Just make sure that you are hydrated. That is the key. You don't want to become dehydrated. You need the water in your system. So I hope these 4 tips helped you. When to fast, how to eat, when to drink, and how to exercise, or when to exercise during your 16/8 fast. And if you have any questions, put them down in the comments below, and I'd love to answer them for you. Have a great day.